Hi everyone, it's Andrew from Vocabulary Ninja here. I'm here today to do a brief video about my new book, buzzing about Write Like a Ninja. I'm delighted that it's actually finally come to fruition and is a genuine book. I know many moons ago when I started teaching, I never thought that I'd have the opportunity to publish one book, let alone what has become the 14th in quite a big series of books now. Write Like a Ninja was a bit of a lockdown idea that I had last year when everyone was locked down, schools were obviously open to key worker pupils and so on, and obviously there was parts of time when you're at home, etc. and so on. And I started writing down some ideas that I had around just general writing and referencing of language and grammar and all the things that pupils are going to need when it comes to writing, and just started to build this bit of a repertoire of reference content for pupils in the form of, it wasn't called Write Like a Ninja then, but basically it had everything that a pupil would need in one of my lessons or your lessons to be able to be successful. And I suppose spending a little bit of time with my own kids got me thinking about not that I spend time with my own children and think about working memory, but got me thinking about how some of the issues that they do struggle with, and children in my classes that possibly struggle with the concept of everything that children need to know in terms of the grammar, the writing expectations, all of the vocabulary and the writing content that we want children to use in school. And lots of pupils find it very, very difficult to remember just even that sort of checklist content that we want pupils to include in terms of, your modal verbs, your classic fronted adverbials, expanded noun phrases and so on. And I guess for a lot of pupils, just remembering to ensure that they include features, and it makes writing very, very mechanical. So, and we all know that. So Write Like a Ninja was very much about trying to free that element of pupils so that if they are, struggling to retain or recall what, specific fronted adverbial, a modal verb, some expanded noun phrases, or just generally stuck for some vocabulary that they might want to use to describe a setting or a character, then that's what this book is all about. It's jam-packed, as you can see. Well, you can't, but here you go. So it's jam-packed with just reference content. It's not about lesson guides and plans and huge amounts of research that, you won't find any of that in this, and it's not pretending to offer that. It's very much a pupil-facing book for the pupils to have beside them while they're working. In my head, my ultimate dream is to see those images coming through on Twitter or in emails where there are whole schools, but whole classes of children that have got these books that are literally next to them, and as they're working, they're using them as a referenceable guide for every aspect of writing. And the idea is that we can move children away from that mechanical process, which, especially when it comes to greater depth, I know moderators, etc., want to see that aspect of children moving through away from that just writing to a checklist. And this book is all about sort of freeing that creative spirit for pupils and enable them to be, really productive when it comes to writing content. Another thing to note is just generally the size of the book. It is, when Bloomsbury and I designed the book, it was very much about making it usable in a desk space in a classroom. So unlike, the Comprehension Ninja books, which are your sort of typical A4 sheet size, which a lot of books are like, that you can see that the book is, a much more manageable size in terms of, ordering class sets so that they can be used in school in multiple ways. So, even the size sets it aside from typical books that might be used to be photocopied, and it very much sets itself aside in terms of a presence in the classroom, something that a teacher could go to and drop into and go, right, everyone, we're going to grab our Write Like a Ninja books, and that becomes part of that standard referencing system for pupils in terms of, in a geography lesson, when we're writing, in a history lesson, obviously in a writing lesson, that this book becomes standard practice in terms of referencing written content across the contents page in terms of setting vocabulary, general vocabulary, reference to all the assessment framework content in terms of fronted adverbials, your modal verbs, and so on. So there's absolutely a huge amount of content in here, from the basics in terms of your standard grammar, setting description, all the way up to metaphor, simile, alliteration, with huge amounts of examples in there, endless amounts of examples for pupils to reference and build that confidence in writing. And I suppose what I really hope for this book to become is, very much that sort of secondary teaching assistant, essentially that other scaffold and support for children to become more independent writers, because instead of that, that endless amount of children putting their hands up for support in the classroom, actually, with a little bit of training and children becoming more familiar with how the book works and in the order that it's referenced, that very much as opposed to the teacher being the first point of reference to support them in the classroom, actually dropping straight into the Write Like a Ninja book in terms of referencing conjunctions or whatever it may be to support them, actually is an effective scaffold that's going to support the writing outcomes for all pupils much more effectively. And the plus side is all those endless photocopiables that can be scattered around the classroom that need replacing constantly and aren't particularly effective because of that. This replaces that instantly and creates a really consistent system in school for pupils to be able to move through and reference every single aspect of the writing curriculum that they need to know, and for schools to get the outcomes that we want. Obviously as well, the sort of final thing I mentioned in terms of the premise was obviously going right back to the start in terms of the book was created in lockdown with that concept that actually pupils are going to need support in that catch up, and I'm conscious around that word catch up, because we see that there's lots of content out there around who they're catching up for or why or against whom. So that's important, but just in terms of supporting children to get the best out of themselves and that best learning experience in school and at home for parents, is really important that this book was designed for that purpose. Now, I'm also going to be producing another couple of videos that are going to be published over the next fortnight that go a little bit more detail into the book in terms of the content, what's in it and how to use it. So check out the other following videos that you'll see on Twitter and Facebook and other social media platforms over the next few weeks before publication that give you a real sense of what Write Like a Ninja is all about.